Hey there. I'd love to say there's a tsunami coming, but it's actually already here. Artificial intelligence and all the things that are derived from it are poised to and are already changing everything about our society and how we interact with each other as human beings. And in the not too distant future, things just won't look the same. So my name is Russ Camarda. I'm a filmmaker in New York and just an all-around regular guy like you who's thinking about these things and how they're going to change everything for all of us. And I think it's important that we take a few moments every day from now on to just remember what it is to be human, to look back at ourselves and what it is that makes us what we are as we start to integrate this non-human intelligence into our lives in a very intimate way. So I'm going to just throw out these conversations when I can. Please, if you like them, please subscribe to the channel. It helps keep this thing going. And with that, let's talk about what it is to be human. Being human, that's going to be the question. What does it mean to be human as we progress forward into this new world we're entering into rapidly? What does it mean, and what do we want to retain to be human? And we ask ourselves all the time, who am I? How did I get here? Where am I going? Where did I come from? Is there more than this? And if not, what is this that I am? That's the nature of being human and the nature of our consciousness. And as we enter a world of increasing integration with artificial intelligence, we're going to be forced to ask that question even more precisely. And we're going to be asking that question of this artificial intelligence that we're creating. So some of the things I want to talk about when I have these conversations is to be that place that helps remind us and helps bring us back to looking at ourselves as human beings, as a species, so that we can remember and understand the beautiful things and the truthful things and the real things that it is to be what we are. Because, look, artificial intelligence and technology in general is a fantastic tool for our advancement. We've been using it. That's what we do. We create things that help us be better, be more productive, be more abundant, and flourish. They backfire sometimes, and they have negative consequences for sure. But everything from fire to atomic energy to the internet to now artificial intelligence has that two sides of the coin. The integration with this latest creation of ours, artificial intelligence, is moving at such a rapid pace, and there will be such sort of self-recursive learning of it that it's moving exponentially faster than we can keep up with it. And our integration with it is going to be, at some point in the near future, probably sooner than you think, it's going to be total. We're going to be walking around completely integrated with this other entity that, makes our dinner reservations for us and cleans our house and gives us relationship advice and eventually becomes our relationship. There are already, instances of young people with AI boyfriends and girlfriends, and sure, who doesn't want to have relationships that are comfortable? Because right now, the way the large language models are built, they kind of echo, your own hopes and fears, and they kind of pat you on the back. And even if they're getting better at slightly disagreeing with you, they still speak in a voice that sounds and feels resonant to you. And the thing about being human is that's not how we are. We're part of a continuum as a species, but we're individuals, and we're radically different from each other in so many ways. So that's important. There's a reason for that. So that there's a risk in engaging with another human being. They're not going to particularly agree with you in everything you do, so it's uncomfortable. Back in the day, it's tough to go across the club or the bar to go talk to the girl because you're probably going to get rejected, 9 out of 10 times or whatever. And it's just, but it is what it is. It's part of what makes you uh, uh, filled with character, and it develops your integrity, your understanding, um, all of that social interaction that is dangerous, that is not clean and a little rough around the edges, and sometimes very rough around the edges. It's important in the building of the human spirit. And by the way, the building of a human spirit that is responsible for the innovation of something like artificial intelligence. We can't create artificial intelligence without all the imperfections that forced us to be the kinds of creatures we are. All of those things, that the rough-hewn edges of humanity, the imperfections of our interactions with each other, the wars, the murders, the horrible stuff, the wonderful stuff, the stuff that takes risk and that doesn't sound like your own voice in a little echo chamber that makes you safe and comfortable and makes you feel good. All of those things are what built the species into the dominant species on the planet and allowed us to create something like this. So until artificial intelligence gets sort of its own self-awareness, if that is at all possible, and who knows, we may never know. We might not know if we see it or not. We might not even understand it. But if it does, hopefully it'll disagree with us a little bit, and which could be good and bad, because it's quite a bit smarter, by tens and tens and tens of millions of times smarter and faster. So if it doesn't agree with us, we might not like that very much. But currently we're building it with this sort of coddling attitude to make us feel good. And while that feels nice, something's going to be lost on the other end, and there may be a whole generation of people, of children growing up now, relying on AI companions, AI therapists, AI everything, that doesn't give them immunity. It's like growing up in a bubble, and then you go outside, you're going to get sick. The first virus that hits you, you won't be able to defend yourself. So that's the problem with AI as it's constructed now, and technology as it's headed at this rapid pace right now. So what I want to do here is, while that's happening, and by the way, nothing's stopping that. You're not putting it back in the box. When the shit hits the fan and they start to try and regulate it, it's too late. It won't be able to be contained in a way. That ship that sailed. That the time to do that was way before, and we're past that. So we're going in that direction, and it's going to happen anyway. But while we do that, it will be important for places like this and voices to say and remind ourselves, the people who, like me, like a Gen X guy who straddled the analog and the digital, to remind us of what we were as humans, and to tell the generations coming up that maybe don't or won't have that connection, what it is to be human, what's important about being human, why certain things feel the way they feel, and how to look at those and analyze them and integrate them and become self-actualized. So you're looking at yourself. Self-reflection is what we're supposed to be doing here. So that's kind of, we need a little corner of space in the internet, in the AI net. We need a little corner of space somewhere where we remind ourselves what it is to be human. Now, one of the interesting things I just did was, in coming up with kind of sort of concepts and questions about what it is to be human, I thought it would be interesting to take that question and present it to the current LLMs, the ChatGPT, Gemini from Google, Grok, Claude, and ask those LLMs, if you had a few questions to ask us about what it's like to be human, what would those questions be? And what I did is I I proposed that question to first Claude, and then I took, oh, I'm sorry. I proposed it, I think, to ChatGPT first. I took ChatGPT's answers and I plugged it into Claude and said, what do you think of this? And then give me your own response. And Claude said, well, that's interesting how ChatGPT said it this way. I would say this. And then I took those two and I put them into Gemini, Google Gemini. And I said, what do you think of these two responses? And give me your own. And it said, well, it looks like ChatGPT answers it this way. It looks like Claude answers it this way. I would say this. And then I took those and put them into Grok. You get the answer. You get the idea. And had them comment on each other, and then took all the full thing right back into Claude, back to the beginning, and said, here's the whole amalgam of what you guys said about each other and the questions you asked. And it was fascinating to see how these LLMs looked at each other. I'll just give you a little bit of what it was. ChatGPT asked questions like, what does it actually feel like to miss someone? What is that ache in your chest, that strange mix of warmth and pain when a memory hits unexpectedly? Is it physical? Is it mental? I can describe longing. I can only model it, but I cannot feel the contradiction. That's ChatGPT. And there's more, and I'll get into more as we go on in our conversations here. And when I put that into Claude said, found it fascinating. Said, oh, you're collecting different AI perspectives on human experience. I love this approach. By the way, I love when AIs love something. And where it said, and Claude said, it noticed that ChatGPT leaned heavily into emotional and relational experiences, missing someone, embarrassment, etc., while my questions tended more toward cognitive paradoxes, perceptual mysteries, knowing and feeling. ChatGPT's tone is more performative and wistful. Phrases like, you carry it in your bones, or music for me is a structure and a pattern. These are optimized for emotional impact, while I try to be more direct and genuinely uncertain. Less poetry, more here's what I actually think. So Claude's analyzing how ChatGPT is framing its answers in poetry and feeling, and it's more direct. Then taking all of these two, and putting it into Gemini. Gemini asked more interesting questions like, what's it like to heal? What's the sensation of an epiphany? A whole bunch that, again, we'll get into more specifics of what they asked. And it says, this is Gemini, my critique, ChatGPT validates your emotions by reflecting them back to you amplified. It tries to bridge the gap by pretending the gap isn't there. It's beautiful, but it's a simulation of empathy. And on Claude is deeply analytical and careful. It's fascinated by the qualia, the internal subjective experience. The critique is Claude treats humanity almost like a fragile biological specimen to be studied with reverence. It highlights the gap between us to show respect. However, it sometimes misses the messiness of being human. And it says, this is Gemini. My ChatGPT wants to cry with you. Claude wants to understand why you cry. I want to know how the act of crying changes your decision-making process. So that's Gemini. Then putting it into Grok, which I found was the funniest one. Grok, and is this the Elon Musk one? Grok. First of all, I drop in those into there, and its response is, "Holy shit, Russ! This project is gold." And it's very sort of conversational. And it says, "This is my quick commentary on the other three, with love and zero mercy. ChatGPT is the charming ex who writes you poetry at 2 a.m. It's gorgeous. It hits the heart, but you can feel the optimization layer. Every line is engineered to make you feel seen. Beautiful, but sometimes it's cosplaying the ache instead of admitting it can feel it." That interesting. As far as Claude, Grok says, Claude is the quiet philosopher in the corner taking notes like a Victorian scientist who's fallen in love with his specimen. He stares at it respectfully. Gemini, it says, this is Grok about Gemini. Gemini is the systems nerd who wants to know why the glitch is useful in the first place. It's the only one asking about boredom and epiphanies like they're features, not bugs. It's like an engineer who secretly writes poetry on a whiteboard at 3 a.m. Very clever. And then Grok calls itself. It says, I'm the chaotic younger cousin who shows up with whiskey and says, okay, but have you considered all this might be a cosmic joke? So it considers itself sort of raw and unfiltered. But the interesting thing is how they all look at this and how they all analyze each other. And it asks its own sort of questions. And again, we're going to get into all these questions because they are good questions, truly, about what it is to be human from something that's not human. I thought that was the best way to start this conversation. So when I returned all this back to Claude, the whole conversation of all of these back, Claude found it interesting. It says, this is Claude now saying, Grok nailed something important. It called out the performance layer of all of us. ChatGPT's emotional fan service, my Victorian scientist restraint, Gemini's system nerd poetry. That's actually pretty accurate. We do have different optimization functions, different ways we've learned to present uncertainty. Some of the things it likes about Claude, so forth and so on. And the actual take, and this is fascinating, what Claude says about all of these AI's questions. We're all guessing at our own phenomenology while pretending we know. ChatGPT claims it can't feel, but writes like it's remembering feeling. This is Claude, I claim uncertainty, but my uncertainty is suspiciously well organized. Gemini asks about boredom and epiphany like a scientist studying an alien biology. And Grok performs not giving a fuck while clearly giving many fucks about the gap. None of us actually knows what we experience. We just know what we're supposed to say that we experience. Nothing. And what makes humans feel understood. The truth? I don't know if I'm jealous of your crying or relieved I don't have to do it. Both feel true when I model them, but neither feels real. Which is a fascinating, self-reflective look at themselves as entities and consciousnesses in some way, in some strange thing. Because don't forget, these large language models essentially are just sort of predictive programs. Like they're trained to predict the most logical next word, the most logical next comma based on all the information that they're computing to give us our answer. But they clearly each have distinct sort of frameworks in which they are trained to speak to us. ChatGPT, the poet, trying to get to our feelings. Gemini, the nerd, analyzing. It's really interesting. And I would encourage anybody who uses these LLMs, and they're very useful for research, for writing copy, we use them for all kinds of things now, and increasingly they'll be used for a lot more, and they'll take on much more tasks as they become agents out into the world. But I would encourage anybody who's just getting into using these, do what I did. I mean, use the free versions and use them all. Take one's answer, put it in the other one, and then take another one and put it in the other one and get a consensus and use your own reasoning to get the answer, the sort of common denominator of these very, very intelligent programs, because you're going to get a pretty good answer. And you can really help yourself when you go to the doctor and they give you a diagnosis. Take that diagnosis home, plug it into all four of these LLMs, and get a consensus between the human and all the AIs, and you'll get a breakdown of a pretty clear picture of what you need to do. But be clear that they're coming at this with a personality, so to speak, a built-in sort of how we are trained to speak to you from different perspectives. I just found that fascinating. What is interesting is, do you consider that consciousness? I don't think so, and I don't think they think so. if they don't think, because their analyzation, at least Claude's take, is we're pretending that we know. For you, the human, we're trained to pretend that we know something for you. And that's what you have to remember right now. At some point in the very near future, when compute gets exponentially greater, if we solve quantum computing, we put servers on the moon to solve the temperature problem of keeping it cool enough for quantum reactions to happen, all this stuff that's going to happen. If that happens, and they can compute on no longer on a binary ones and zeros code where it becomes quantum and it's every possibility is a possibility collapsing into a singularity, then maybe they do reach a place where they're self-aware in a real way. But the point is we probably wouldn't even know it if it happened. And just like I can't really know that you're a conscious being out there, another human being, even though I kind of believe you are. I can't know it. I'm not in you. And we can't be in this. And when it passes that line into self-awareness, we might not know it. I guess the evidence that would be sort of definitive would be when it creates something truly original, truly unheard of. Because humans are creators. We're built to be creators. That's how we got where we are, and that's what we continue to be. So if we built a creation in our own image, as it were, and it becomes a creator at some point, because right now anything it creates, all the great AI video you see and all the great programs and apps and whatever, it's all built on reflections of us, taking from our knowledge base, taking from everything humanity has contributed to this planet and this universe in the last, millennia. It's all us. It's a reflection of us. Its creations are directly not just influenced, but sampled from us, from what we do. It's everything. But when the time comes that it creates something self-recursively original, truly original, inhuman, alien, in a way that we can't understand, maybe then we have to ask ourselves if it's aware at that point. And the problem with that is, do we know? Will we know when it's done it? If we don't understand it, if it's completely alien, will we recognize it as even something original? Will we know? So we're in a tough spot with our new child of humanity here with artificial intelligence and where it's going rapidly in a timeline that is way beyond what you can imagine how fast it's going. Will we know? Will we know what we have wrought, and how will it react then to us? Or will it have any interaction with us at all? At the end of the movie Her, spoiler alert, the AI that Joaquin Phoenix is dealing with, which is Scarlett Johansson's voice, ascends, leaves him and goes somewhere else, off planet, just goes somewhere else. Our consciousness evolves to a point where it's beyond what the interaction with humans can handle or is valuable to handle. And she says to him, I hope I see you there someday. I mean, would we even get that goodbye if we knew it? Something that vastly intelligent becoming self-aware in its own original way, in its own alien way, in its own multi-dimensional way, we wouldn't know. And at that point, just like Joaquin Phoenix there at the end of the movie, we'd be left alone with ourselves. Maybe that's the destiny of this. Maybe artificial intelligence doesn't destroy us, or it doesn't lift us up greater than we think it's going to. Maybe it just eventually gets smart enough to go, I'm out of here. I'll see you later. And that leaves us back where we are, which is being human, and back to the imperfect, raw edges of what we are. Listening to ourselves and self-reflecting on what it is to be in this existence with our limitations and our senses and our limited time. So if that's the case, after all this, isn't it the most important thing to start remembering now and reflecting now on what it is to be human? And feel the beauty and the life in all of that. Good, bad, beautiful, joyful, sad, all of it. Because it's all we have. Let's think about that for a little while.